Brown had a huge game, 110 and a touchdown. Eagles win their 10th in a row in face of the media saying that there's problems with the team. Here's Jalen Hurts.
So that's what y'all want to see, huh?
Greg, your reaction to Jalen Hurts?
That's your team.
You know, this is interesting because when the noise comes from inside your own locker room, it's hard for someone like myself who's sitting on this side to say, yeah, that's what we wanted to see. However, the receiver in me is like, yeah, that's what I wanted to see. Because you said something about when we talked about this earlier. Like, this is what they're going to have to do.
Correct.
Like, teams in the postseason are always going to take away what you do best. And so if they're not able to throw the ball and be effective with these skill position guys that they have who are very talented, it's going to be problematic. And you know who's going to get most of the blame? Jalen Hurts.
And he should.
Absolutely, because we know the caliber talent that he has on the outside, and Goddard, and even Saquon when he gets out in the open field. So, like, this is the version of what they're going to have to be like. I'm not saying that they're going to completely eliminate the run, because you gotta do what you do well and what's gotten you there. But I think Jalen Hurts is so bought into the idea of, man, I don't have to carry the load, to where it's like he's more comfortable playing the background and not being out front and leading this team throwing the ball.
Yeah, I mean, the question is, can he keep this up? Because like you said, this is what they're going to have to do in the playoffs. Now, when he throws it 30 or more times like he did yesterday, this year they're 3-2. I mean, they're 12-2 as a team, and they've lost those games with him throwing it more than 30 times. 6 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. So I do think part of their philosophy of not having him turn the ball over was to run more and pass less. But I do think he's capable. Like what he did yesterday, people might think it was, oh, wow, look at how good Jalen Hurts looks. But he's been throwing it well. He hasn't been throwing it a lot this year, but he's been throwing it pretty well. He's got career highs in completion percentage, passer rating, touchdown percentage. Like, he's having one of his better years throwing the ball. He's not throwing it a lot. But I do think, and this is also a guy, Nick, that in the Super Bowl, the one time he was there, he played great, and he threw it well, threw for 300-plus yards. So I do think there's a good chance he can keep this up.
So listen, the Super Bowl is the only of his 5 career playoff games that he threw the ball well. And that's the other 2 wins they had, they didn't really throw it at all. They didn't have to. And then the 2 losses, one was, both were actually to the Bucs. One with Brady, one with Baker. They were just blowout losses, and wasn't really so much on him as it was on the team as a whole. But he didn't have these monster games. To win the Super Bowl, he has to keep this up. To win, you're just not. You don't have to have the best quarterback in the Super Bowl to win that game, but you have to be able to put up some 10-9 rounds. And on the other side, I think is going to be Patrick Mahomes. Greg, I think, believes it's going to be Josh Allen. Brew believes it's going to be Lamar Jackson. And Vegas would tell us it's going to be one of those 3. I guess, there's oddly, maybe if they play this team again, it would be a different scenario where they could win a different way. But I don't think it's going to be anybody else. It's also why I was more defensive later in the week of A.J. Brown, because, I think the comments maybe came slightly from a place of I've got to get mine, but also from a place of we can't get to where we're trying to get to being this one-dimensional as a team. But I thought that press conference, and again, I'm an Eagles guy. Everybody knows that. Was a little too smug.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because, as Greg pointed out, it's not what we wanted to see. It's what the best, A.J. Brown and Brandon Graham wanted to see, 2 of your most highly respected, highest paid, Brandon Graham's longest tenured teammate. And the other thing is, you haven't been great this year. You weren't great last year. And so I just think that it was an era of and then he also said we didn't play it the grass is green where you water it. It was basically we could have been doing this the whole time, but we haven't been trying to. I don't believe that to be true.
Okay. choosing violence. This whole thing is getting out of control. I went to go look for more clips and I see buying Jalen can keep this up. What kind of question is that? Please tell me, what kind of question is that? That is insanity. Oh, the only time he's done it in the playoffs was in the Super Bowl. Last time I checked, that's the most important game of an NFL season. Last time I checked, that's what we constantly use as a frame of reference for greatness. And the man does it in the Super Bowl against the Kansas City Chiefs, against Spags, one of the best defensive minds in the NFL, and we want to act like it's nothing. Are we serious right now? Let's just start off with that Super Bowl alone. He had the highest passing grade from 2001 to 2022, and I think this still reigns true even after 23. A 92.9, ahead of Aaron Rodgers, ahead of Eli Manning, Nick Foles, Russell Wilson, Joe Flacco, Drew Brees, Ben Roethlisberger, Tom Brady, Eli Manning again. Better than Patrick Mahomes. Hurts finished the game with 5 big-time throws, tied for the second most in the Super Bowl since the 2001. His 92.9 passing grade was the best mark ever earned by a quarterback in that span. He set the record for most yards rushing ever by a quarterback in a Super Bowl. He tied Terrell Davis's record for most TD runs by any player, tied James White's mark with 20 points scored, and joined Hall of Famer Steve Young and Joe Montana as the only players ever to account for at least 370 yards and 4 touchdowns rushing and passing in a Super Bowl. Hurts became the first player in NFL history to throw for 300 yards, run for 70 yards, complete 70% of his passes, and rush for 3 touchdowns in any game, regular season, postseason, or Super Bowl. Only 4 others have thrown for 300 yards, run for 70, and completed 70% of their passes. Culpepper, Vic, Herbert, and Lamar Jackson. Hurts is also the first quarterback in Super Bowl history to throw for 300 yards and complete 70% of his passes without an interception. You all know Patrick Mahomes has 5 interceptions in 4 Super Bowls. Including his 2-point conversion, Hurts scored 20 points Sunday, the 5th most ever in a playoff game, and tied for the most in a Super Bowl with the Patriots' James White, who scored 20 in 2016 against the Falcons. I mean, my God, what else do you want him to do? I mean, seriously. And the majority of his rushing yards in that Super Bowl came after contact. Everyone really shove or whatever. I mean, I really don't understand why we want to keep acting like Hurts has not stepped up. Not only was Hurts' 103.4 passer rating the highest by a quarterback under 25 in a Super Bowl, it was the highest by 17 points. The previous high was Tom Brady's 86.2. Hurts was the youngest quarterback to have a completion percentage over 70 in a Super Bowl, the youngest quarterback to throw for 300 yards without an interception in a Super Bowl, and the youngest with 4 total touchdowns in a Super Bowl. Hurts' 70 rushing yards are a Super Bowl record, 6 more than Steve McNair of the Titans. I mean, I really don't understand. And then at that time, obviously this is a little dated because was written in 22. Hurts now has 9 total touchdowns in his first 4 career postseason games. 4 passing, 5 rushing. Only 5 quarterbacks in history have had more in their first 4 career playoff games. Patrick Mahomes, Kurt Warner, Aaron Rodgers, Alex Smith, Dan Marino. Yeah, it seems like that's pretty good company. Saying that he's been bad this season or he hasn't been that good is insane. Insanity. I know Nick writes all about the stats. So let's use some stats. Jalen Hurts, tight window throws, has more tight window throws than Joe Burrow, Josh Allen, Matthew Stafford, Lamar Jackson, and you guessed it, Patrick Mahomes. He has a higher completed air yards average, higher than Matthew Stafford, Joe Burrow, Josh Allen, Jared Goff, and you guessed it, Patrick Mahomes. He only has 5 interceptions. Mahomes has 11, Burrow has 8, Stafford has 7, Allen has 5. Hurts is a top 5 in passer rating with a 104.5, better than Allen, Herbert, Mahomes, pretty much every other quarterback since it's top 5. He's top 6 in completion percentage, 69.2. Better than Lamar, better than Mahomes, better than Stafford, better than Josh Allen. His accuracy rating is also top in the league, higher than Goff, Allen, Stafford, Patrick Mahomes. His average depth of target is also further than, is 7.7 yards, which is higher than Goff, 6.6, Mahomes, which is 6.2, who's only above, checks notes, Gardner Minshew, and Tua Tagovailoa. So literally Patrick Mahomes is throwing the shortest passes outside of Tua and Gardner Minshew. So looking at all of this statistically, he's also top 10 in the least bad throw percentage. So I just don't understand what this whole narrative got that Jalen Hurts is not a good thrower. Is it ultimately what makes him the most special quarterback? No, it's not. It's not. What makes him special is his ability to do all of these things together. Is for him to use his legs. Is for him to be that threat for the RRPO. For him to go the deep ball underneath. Again, a little bit of everything. He is not this pure pocket passer like a Joe Burrow. We got that. Congrats. Joe Burrow is a better thrower of the ball than Jalen Hurts. I don't know any Jalen Hurts fan or Eagles fan that could deny that. But to try to act like Jalen Hurts hasn't been good this year is patently false. It's an incorrect statement. We know they love passer rating. We know they love it. Well, it's top in the league. It's top in the league. We know how much turnovers matter. Well, it's top in the league for lowest. And again, when we do the more advanced analytics, tight window throws, accuracy, which is how many times does the ball essentially hit you, hit the receivers in the hands where they can catch it. Top in the league, better than Goff, Allen, Stafford, Mahomes. And again, his average depth of target is further than many of those quarterbacks. So this isn't a dink and dunk thing either. And to also have top 6 completion percentage. It's just wild. He's been using the team around him. First off, A.J. Brown was in and out of the lineup. So was Dallas Goedert. So was Devontae. So was multiple O-linemen. New coordinator with Kellen Moore. Had to learn an entire new playbook. An entire new offense. They literally said going into the season, 99% of this is all new. So you want to say that Jalen Hurts is being a little smug? I get it. I like guys to be kind of neutral in that regard, kind of just be all charming and make a little joke here and there and smile. I like that. I get it. But you know what? The man's been doubted every step of the way. He's been doubted every step of the way. He balls out in a Super Bowl the next year. He's injured. You have awful coordinators. And the season obviously doesn't go very well. And everyone's like, he's not good. 2022 was an outlier. 2022 was just a fluke. MVP candidate, but he didn't win MVP. He cost them the Super Bowl. He balled out in that Super Bowl. He was the only reason why they were even in that Super Bowl. He put that team on his back. There was one play, and I think it was by Dallas Goedert, that he actually made a great play on the ball to make the catch to kind of help out Jalen Hurts. Outside of that, it was just pure perfection from Hurts. It's just a tush push. Okay, sure. Whatever you say. That's why majority of his yards all came after contact. Sure. I mean, the takes on Jalen Hurts are always just absurd. And he feels it. He sees it. He hears everyone saying that he's incapable of reading defenses. He can't throw the deep ball. His offense, all of his passing, all of the teams that he's played for, his offense has been limited by passing. You got people like Nick Wright saying, well, he hasn't really played good in the playoffs. Oh, you mean his first year as a starter? When they went in there and yes, they got beat? And then the following year, when they balled out and went to the Super Bowl? I mean, yeah, it's his fault that they didn't need him to be a superhero against the 49ers and against the New York Giants. And then again, against the Bucs the following year, he was injured. He dislocated his finger the week before the game. A.J. Brown wasn't playing. Jason Kelsey's about to retire. That team completely gave up. They're firing coordinators. It was obviously a mess. Obviously a mess. We know that. Everyone knows that. No one doubts that. And then if you want to say, oh, well, you know, when he throws over 30 times, that's for every quarterback. Every quarterback out there does not win a lot of those games. Whether it's Dak, whether it's Mahomes, whether it's Allen, whether it's Lamar. But yet we want to keep highlighting that as a way to undercut Hurts. It makes sense when you use that against a quarterback like a Dak Prescott. Because what has Dak Prescott actually really done? Does he deserve any of the benefit of the doubt when he's got a great team behind him and then just crumbles in the playoffs? Hasn't gotten to an NFC championship game? Hasn't played in a Super Bowl? Certain comparisons make sense until you reach a certain level. It's why we're extra hard on Tom Brady, Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, because we're talking about like GOAT conversations. Because people are like, oh, why do you use that standard for Mahomes, but not Brock Purdy? Well, because Brock Purdy's not in consideration to be the GOAT. That's why. It's not that hard of a concept to understand or grasp. And yet we want to keep nickel and diming Jalen Hurts, who has been proven to be a top quarterback in the NFL. Is he this just transcendent, oh my God, unbelievable, lose your mind quarterback? No. But he's obviously a top quarterback. He's obviously not a scrub. If you need him to pass the ball 45 times, game after game after game, will he lead you to victory? Most likely not. Again, he's not Joe Burrow. Glad we figured that out. Glad we figured that out. Let me know all the times that they asked Patrick Mahomes to do that, especially when he doesn't have big-time players like Travis Kelce, Tyreek Hill, etc. Andy Reid as his coordinator. It's just so absurd. Buying Jalen Hurts can keep this up? I don't believe you. What do you mean you don't believe it? The offense was working. They were running it how they wanted to. They're winning games. 12-2. Really, you don't believe it? But we're just going to believe that the Kansas City Chiefs are just doing what they're doing on purpose? Because they're just experimenting in the first half, as Nick Wright put it? Oh, they want to have close games. They're just experimenting. Oh, they're actually sandbagging. Andy Reid's sandbagging. They're keeping a lot of their plays to their vest. They're just playing like three-dimensional chess, man. There's levels to this. That's funny. That's funny how it works like that, isn't it? Yeah. Everyone knows. Everyone knows that the other teams and the other quarterbacks, any of their strengths and their positives, all get attributed to them. And any of their negatives get attributed to the O-line, the weapons, the coach. Jalen Hurts never gets that benefit of the doubt. And I give that benefit of doubt to a lot of these guys. I give that benefit of the doubt. I gave that benefit of doubt to Joe Burrow, to Josh Allen, even Patrick Mahomes with all his weapons down. I don't expect him to put up the same numbers as Joe Burrow. I'm not like, oh, look, Joe Burrow has all these passing touchdowns. Why doesn't Patrick Mahomes? I call out Patrick Mahomes' like interceptions, not his lack of like passing touchdowns or something, because that's indefensible. Those are bad decisions, bad throws, nothing to do with the people who you're throwing to. It's not like he's just throwing 50-50 balls and hoping some guy can catch it and he doesn't have the receiver to do it, so he can't. That's not the story here. Not to mention, again, you have Andy Reid. But with Jalen Hurts, he gets no benefit of the doubt. And again, to be fair, there's a lot of people that don't want to give that benefit of the doubt to Josh Allen when I call out the coordinators that he's had in the past. Lamar Jackson. But it's extra loud. Nobody asked, can Josh Allen keep this up? They say, can Josh Allen keep it up in terms of can he continue to be Superman? Can his Superman greatness continue to lead the Bills to win? Same thing with Joe Burrow, Lamar Jackson. But they don't ask, can his skill set fundamentally keep up? Can his talent keep up? They don't ask those questions. They don't ask that for Jared Goff, Josh Allen, Lamar, Joe Burrow, Patrick Mahomes. Heck, they don't even ask that for Brock Purdy. They didn't ask that when Brock Purdy was playing his first couple of years, when he was really flowing. Obviously this year, injuries and all of that. But they didn't say, can Brock Purdy keep this up? Yeah, they definitely had people calling out Brock Purdy and saying that he's a limiting factor. He's being carried by his team. But they didn't question whether or not his skill set could keep up. They didn't give him the credit, but they didn't question whether or not his arm was just going to collapse. But with Jalen Hurts, we got a question. Do you think he can keep this up? They are a run-first team. Just like the Kansas City Chiefs were a defensive-led team. Like we said before, and as Nick Wright just would not let it go last year, is that the Chiefs don't need to score all those points because that defense was so legit holding teams down to 19 or less points. So they didn't need cartoon numbers from Patrick Mahomes. But it's because they were unable to do it. That's the reality. They were just unable to do it. But he still defended it in a way that was still kind of like, well, they don't need to. They don't need to. But now with the Eagles and Jalen Hurts, it's that he's incapable of doing. And then why are you being so smug? He hasn't been playing good this year. Yes, he has. I already went through all those numbers. I already went through all the stats and the rankings. I get it. He doesn't have 40 passing touchdowns and 3 interceptions and 5,000 yards. And so that means good season. Anything less than that means not good season. I get it. Having an unbelievably awesome offensive line and a fantastic running back and just a running attack in general, his legs as well. And also, we're not going to give credit for him. Do you realize that all these players have their best years with the Eagles with Jalen Hurts? You understand that, right? Just crazy. Crazy. Buying Jalen Hurts can keep this up, man. When I queued this clip up and I saw that bottom, then that tagline, that title, I was like, oh my God. I listened to a pump up song right before it, and I was like, oh my God. We're about to get after this because this is just madness. And again, I'm not even out here saying that Jalen Hurts is like this amazing, unstoppable quarterback. I'm not even making that argument. But we just swing from such extremes. It's unbelievable. We say that Jalen Hurts is incapable of doing something. That's why they took the ball out of his hands. Then he now proves that statement wrong. And then the immediate comment is, well, can he keep doing this? He doesn't need to keep doing this. That's the thing. He doesn't need to keep doing this. Do you think that the Cincinnati Bengals would love to have a run game like the Eagles and Saquon Barkley? Yep. I think they would. Wild. I'm going to settle down. Coming in too hot, man. This stuff just drives me nuts, honestly. If we want to have a conversation about the Philadelphia Eagles and Jalen Hurts and saying, hey, this was great, but should the Eagles make this their foundation of their offensive game plan, or should they go back to the run game, right? We can have those questions and say, you know what, I think it probably makes sense to still have the run game be the foundation. It's the most resilient. It's the most reliable. Come time really cold weather playoff games, getting Saquon going is really important. But what I think the Eagles need to make sure that they do is not necessarily up the passing game, but just make sure that when it's there, they go after it. And when you really do have AJ 50-50, you got to make sure that you don't miss those opportunities. There you go. That's not that hard to say. That's so basic. That's so easy. It's so understandable. Really simple. I just made it up right now off the top of my head. And yet it's 100% accurate. And it's done in a way that doesn't have to question Jalen Hurts' ability to throw the ball as a quarterback for the Philadelphia Eagles. He's got one of the best winning records against teams with winning records of all time. It's funny, man. It's so funny. I should have been a defense attorney, honestly. Because I make a Lamar Jackson video and everyone's like, you're such a Lamar, you glazed Lamar Jackson. Now I'm making this video and everyone's going to be like, Jalen Hurts, Jalen Hurts. I just think when we have such insane comments and takes like this, it really does make my head explode, honestly. It's really honestly takes like this, when before I had this channel, that I was just like, you do feel like an athlete, or you feel like a character, like a secret agent, or somewhere you're just like, it's time, and you have like a montage where you're like getting dressed and you're like putting your boots on, strapping up, and you're like, all right, let's get out here. Because it's just like the insanity. Like I always say, you can come up with other arguments, but like this, oh man. Well, when Jalen Hurts throws for over 30 times, we said the same thing about Josh Allen, especially last year. And again, I ripped them for it. Oh, where they're taking the ball out of Josh Allen's hands and they're doing better because they're asking him to do less. Yes, because your team is better when you ask your quarterback to do less. Yeah, that's obvious. Again, look no further than Joe Burrow this year. It's a problem when you have someone like Patrick Mahomes who's throwing against the Browns 19 for 38 and 159 yards. That's playing bad and a 78 rating. 4 yards per attempt. That's playing bad. And you're just lucky that the other team just turned the ball over 6 times. But asking your quarterback to only throw 22 times, completing 17, 18 of those passes, and putting up 170 yards, 2 touchdowns, 3 total touchdowns, that is a great game. There's differences. Not all just borderline stats where you're like passing yards, touchdowns, passer rating, completion percent. They're not all the same. That's why you got to watch the games. You got to see how it's unfolded. But those are just my thoughts. I'd absolutely love to hear yours about Jalen Hurts and the Philadelphia Eagles. Are you buying that Jalen Hurts can keep this up? Do you think this is a ridiculous question? Let me know in the comments below. I read every single comment, so whether you agree with me or disagree with me, either way, let's get in some discussions. Let's get in some fights, but ultimately, let's just have some fun. And please do consider subscribing. We're building an amazing community here, and I'd absolutely love to see you part of it. I want to build something that we all genuinely feel connected to, something that we're really excited to be part of. I think we're well on our way to doing it. Please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, as it really does help with the visibility and the algorithm. Thank you so much, and see you next time.